And this is Brass Check, and we're recording this on Saturday, April 10th, 2021, and we've got to timestamp this one because apparently we're the first, if not the only, people talking about this. So I continuously get emails from people going, but what about the Brazil variant? And I have two comments about that. Well, three comments. The first is, when a group of people have been lying to you continuously about everything under the sun, nonstop, and you have caught them in every single lie, at what point do you stop accepting anything they say at face value? Now, I'm an open-minded person, and the truth is out there, and even a liar can tell the truth by mistake. So I'm willing to keep an open mind, but I am certainly not willing to go into hysterical mode based on reports from the news media and public health officials about anything anywhere, right? I mean, it's just sheer lunacy. At what point do you stop reflexively, automatically believing these people? Second, a doctor told me. A doctor told you? Do you think these people know anything? All they are robotic repeaters of whatever they're told. They're poorly educated, and I don't consider being grinded with chemistry and biology from 18 to 26 and passing a few exams to be an education. They're indoctrinated into a very specific medical philosophy, which just happens to enrich the pharmaceutical industry and the medical instrument and devices industry. I'm not saying there can never be a useful pharmaceutical product. I am not saying there can never be a useful medical device. I am saying both those industries are corrupt as hell, malicious as hell, reckless as hell, and have completely corrupted not only the practice of medicine and medical education, but even research in the biological sciences. So the fact that some guy that's or gal who's part and parcel of that absolutely depraved and sinister system has an opinion about something that he doesn't know, he heard, and therefore, because he's a doctor, we think his hearsay baloney has any validity at all? No, not at all. The third issue is Brazil. You notice how they always have, the problems always occur in some far-flung place. It's in China. It's in South Africa. Well, Brazil is one of their favorite places to cook up panics, and one of the great examples of that is the absolute bogus scam of the Zika virus, which everybody has forgotten. Fauci was behind that. We have videotape of him bragging years ago about he met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff to develop a strategy to keep Zika from coming to America's shores. Anyway, Zika is, it's down in Brazil, happened among poor people, and the ghouls of public health went down there and created an absolute panic over, well, we're going to hear the actual truth about Zika right now. But anyway, if you've got your knickers in a knot about the Brazilian variant, I'm not saying it's not possible. I mean, everything's possible, but I'm saying look at the source of the information, and the fact that your doctor is relaying it to you is about as useless a source of information as there can possibly be. And remember, these people, their entire profession, you wake up and go to work and do productive things. They wake up and go to work and work on public health scams that support pharma. They do that, and they've got about 1 million times more money than you, and there's tens of thousands of them drawing paychecks to do it, and they've got the media in their pocket, they've got the idiot doctors in their pocket, and it is it's a one-sided battle, to say the least, but the truth is the mighty sword. So anyway, here's a little bit about Zika.
Now let's go to Zika virus. In Miami Beach, they want to spray the pesticide Naled, but Naled is described in an article in The Guardian as a potent neurotoxin that kills mosquitoes on contact, which opponents claim can cause birth defects. Well, isn't this remarkable? Because the Zika virus is supposed to cause the birth defects, microcephaly. And Naled has been blamed for the deaths of millions of honeybees following aerial spraying in South Carolina, and therefore there are protests in Miami. I'm glad to see this. Natural News, which tends to be on the very far right of the political spectrum, criticizes House Republicans. The House of Representatives voted to loosen already weak pesticide regulations in a purported effort to combat the spread of the Zika virus. The latest version of the bill is called the Zika Control Act. Opponents of the legislation say it's being pushed for other reasons. Democrats, who largely voted against it, have accused the GOP of passing the bill deceptively, saying it's already been considered and rejected 5 times under 4 different guises, according to the newsletter The Hill. Again, if Zika virus is not the cause of the problems found in Brazil, and pesticides are the cause, then spraying pesticides to get rid of mosquitoes is a double danger. A virologist who studied at Oxford and elsewhere wrote, "The evidence that Zika is unlikely to be linked to microcephaly. Tests for Zika are often confused by cross-reactions with other flaviviruses. Previous Zika epidemics in other places have not noted the link with microcephaly despite detailed follow-up. Why only microcephaly? Other viruses result in a range of birth defects. Why would Zika only be causing microcephaly? It would also be necessary to prove a specific tropism for the brain cells. That means that the virus is specifically attracted to brain cells." He says no such tropism or attraction has been shown in adult Zika infections. So that's evidence against Zika virus. The Philadelphia Inquirer commented on 2 members of Congress who extremely exaggerated what they said about the Zika virus. They note that Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, not a member of Congress, a senator, sorry, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand claimed over 4,000 babies in Brazil have been born in the last year with microcephaly. The newspaper points out that of those 4,180 suspected cases, only 270 were confirmed. The remaining were either under investigation or discarded. Senator Richard Blumenthal said those 4,000 cases have been linked to the outbreak of the Zika virus. However, as of January 29th, 2016, only 6 of the 270 confirmed babies with microcephaly had tested positive for Zika. And what is microcephaly? Anyway, the problem with words is they make it seem like something is very... that there's a great deal of confidence in something when there actually isn't. A 2009 paper in Neurology says, microcephaly is an important neurological sign, but there is non-uniformity in its definition and evaluation. It can result from any insult that disturbs early brain growth and can be seen in association with hundreds of genetic syndromes. They don't mention the possibility that it could be associated with exposure to chemicals such as pesticides or vaccines. Annually, approximately 25,000 infants in the United States will be diagnosed with microcephaly, the head circumference less than 2 standard deviations from the average. Few data are available to inform evidence-based recommendations regarding diagnostic testing. Now, there's a problem with using statistics in this kind of area, because if you had a population in which there was nobody who had brain damage, there was nobody who had a small head, no baby had a small head due to any problem, genetic, chemicals, vaccines, or whatever, there would still be heads that were less than 2 standard deviations away from the mean. That's just a reality. There's always a certain percentage of anything that's less than 2 standard deviations from the mean. I think 5%, approximately 5% is 2 standard deviations. So you will always have babies in this, despite whether or not you have microcephaly. On the other hand, if the amount of microcephaly in the population was increasing, using a definition based on standard deviation would miss a lot of babies that actually did have microcephaly. So it's a terrible way to measure something like microcephaly if the rate differs from year to year. So if you're only concerned about genes, maybe it would be relatively static from year to year, but if it's caused by chemicals, it could vary widely. Even in places where pesticides are used fairly consistently, the environmental conditions change and the pesticides change. Some years they may start using more toxic pesticides. There may be more or less wind, more or less rain, temperatures may be higher or lower, and the effect of the pesticides under those conditions may be significantly different. And so they're recommending neuroimaging in order to identify structural problems with the baby's head, which is probably going to be necessary. But what this means is that, as was seen in Brazil, you can measure the heads of infants to find a whole bunch of infants with microcephaly, and many of them have no problem. They're just really small. They're just slightly small babies. And there could also be babies who have problems that are missed. But without a consistent and meaningful definition of microcephaly, it's meaningless to talk about an epidemic of microcephaly. And of course, this was seen in Brazil, where the majority of cases that were thought to be microcephaly have not yet panned out.